In the farthest reaches of the New Mexico territory, where the desert stretched endlessly and civilization seemed like a distant memory, there lived a man named Samuel Richardson. He was a solitary figure, a former Union soldier who had purchased a small ranch after the war, seeking nothing more than peace and isolation from a world that had shown him too much violence. His property bordered the ancient Apache lands, a place where few white settlers dared to venture, and fewer still chose to make their home. Samuel was different, though. He respected the land and its original inhabitants, and perhaps that respect is what saved his life and led him into one of the most extraordinary relationships any man could imagine. It began on a cold winter morning in 1872. Samuel was checking his property line near a deep canyon when he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was a groan, deep and resonant, coming from within a cave hidden behind a thick curtain of desert brush. Most men would have run, would have fetched their rifle and returned with help, but Samuel had learned during the war that fear often created more problems than courage. He approached the cave slowly, his hand on his pistol, his heart pounding in his chest. What he found inside changed the course of his life forever. There, huddled in the darkness, was a woman unlike any he had ever seen. She was enormous, standing at least 7 feet tall even in her crouched position, with broad shoulders and powerful limbs. Her features were distinctly Apache, with high cheekbones and dark eyes that held both intelligence and terror. She was injured, a deep wound in her leg that had become infected, and she was clearly starving. When she saw Samuel, she didn't attack. Instead, she pressed herself against the far wall of the cave, making herself as small as possible, her eyes pleading with him in a way that transcended language. In that moment, Samuel made a decision that would define the next 2 decades of his life. He returned to his ranch and gathered supplies: food, water, bandages, and medicine. Every day for the next several weeks, he made the journey to the cave, leaving supplies just inside the entrance. At first, the woman wouldn't come near while he was present. She would wait until he left, then emerge to take what he had brought. But gradually, as her injury healed and her strength returned, she began to show herself while he was there. They started to communicate through gestures and expressions, building a vocabulary of understanding that didn't require words. Samuel learned that her name was Nailnish, which meant she who works in the Apache language, though he came to call her Nala for simplicity. As months turned into years, Samuel learned Nala's story through patient conversation as she slowly learned English and he picked up fragments of Apache. She had been born different, her unusual size marking her from birth as special among her people. In Apache culture, such differences were sometimes seen as gifts from the spirits, and Nala had been raised as a warrior and protector of her tribe. She had fought in many battles, her size and strength making her a formidable opponent. But then came the darkest chapter of the Apache Wars, when the U.S. military intensified its campaign to relocate all Apache peoples to reservations. Nala's tribe had been attacked during a peaceful gathering. The soldiers, perhaps frightened by her appearance or seeing her as a particular threat, had singled her out. She had fought back, protecting the women and children of her tribe as they fled, but in doing so, she had killed several soldiers. From that day forward, she became a hunted woman. But it wasn't just the military that pursued her. As stories of the giant Apache woman spread, she became something of a legend, and with that legend came fear from all sides. What Samuel came to understand over those 20 years was that Nala didn't fear humans because they could harm her physically. She was strong enough to defend herself, skilled enough to survive in the harshest conditions. What she feared was what humans represented: the capacity for cruelty that transcends reason, the tendency to destroy what they don't understand, and the way fear could turn ordinary people into monsters. She told him of times when she had approached settlements in peace, hoping to trade or simply pass through, only to be met with gunfire and mobs. She spoke of how her own people, after the trauma of war and relocation, had begun to see her as a curse rather than a blessing, a reminder of their lost power and freedom. Samuel continued to bring her food, supplies, and companionship throughout those 2 decades. He never told another soul about her existence, understanding that her survival depended on secrecy. His neighbors thought him odd, a hermit who kept to himself and made frequent trips into the wilderness, but they left him alone. Samuel's ranch was modest but successful enough to support both himself and his hidden friend. He brought her books, and she proved to be an eager learner, devouring stories and histories with a hunger that matched her physical appetite. Through their conversations, Samuel began to see humanity through Nala's eyes, and it was a sobering perspective. She spoke of how her people had lived in harmony with the land for countless generations, only to watch it be carved up and claimed by strangers who saw it as empty and unused. She described the casual cruelty of soldiers who would shoot at her for sport, as if she were some kind of exotic game animal rather than a thinking, feeling person. She told him of the time she had saved a settler family from a flash flood, only to have them later join a hunting party seeking to capture or kill her, their fear overriding any sense of gratitude or humanity. But Nala also shared stories that revealed her own struggle with fear and prejudice. She admitted that she had initially feared Samuel, not just because he was white, but because he was human. She had seen what humans were capable of when they felt threatened or when they wanted something. She feared that one day, Samuel's kindness would run out, or that he would decide the reward money offered for her capture was worth more than their friendship. It took years before she truly trusted him, before she could sleep in his presence without keeping one eye open, before she could accept that perhaps not all humans were driven by the same demons. As the years passed, Samuel grew older and Nala became more than just someone he helped. She became his closest friend. They would spend hours talking about philosophy, about the nature of humanity, about what it meant to be different in a world that demanded conformity. Nala possessed a wisdom that came from seeing humanity from the outside, from being simultaneously part of the human race and apart from it. She understood that fear was humanity's greatest weakness and greatest weapon, and that as long as people feared what was different, there would never be true peace. Samuel learned that Nala's fear of humans wasn't paranoia or prejudice. It was a rational response to consistent evidence. She had witnessed the genocide of her people, not through direct violence alone but through systematic destruction of their way of life. She had seen how fear could be weaponized, how stories and rumors could turn her from a person into a monster in the public imagination. She understood that humans, when afraid, became capable of justifying any atrocity, any cruelty, because they convinced themselves they were acting in self-defense or for the greater good. One day, nearly 20 years after their first meeting, Samuel fell ill. He knew his time was limited, and he faced a terrible dilemma. He had kept Nala's secret for 2 decades, but what would happen to her after he was gone? Who would bring her supplies? Who would ensure her safety? He shared his concerns with Nala during what would be one of their final conversations. Her response surprised him. She told him that she had always known this day would come, that she had been preparing for it for years. She had watched the territory change, had seen more settlements appear, more people arrive. She knew that the world was shrinking around her, that there would soon be nowhere left to hide. But rather than despair, Nala had come to a decision. She told Samuel that his 20 years of kindness had shown her that not all humans were driven by fear, that compassion and understanding were possible. She had decided that when he was gone, she would leave the territory entirely, traveling north into the mountains of Colorado where the wilderness was still vast and human presence minimal. She would live out her remaining years in solitude, but she would carry with her the memory of one human who had seen past her differences and treated her with dignity and respect. In their final conversation, Nala revealed the full depth of why she feared humans. It wasn't just the violence or the cruelty, though those were real enough. What she truly feared was the ease with which humans could dehumanize others, the speed with which they could transform a person into a thing, a threat, a problem to be eliminated. She had watched it happen to her people, had experienced it herself, and she understood that this capacity for dehumanization was humanity's original sin. As long as humans could look at another being and see something less than themselves, there would be no safety for anyone who was different. Samuel died peacefully in 1892, and true to her word, Nala disappeared into the northern wilderness. The cave where she had lived for 20 years was found empty except for a collection of books and a small bundle of letters she had written to Samuel over the years, practicing her English. These letters, discovered years later, provided the only documentation of their extraordinary friendship. In them, Nala wrote eloquently about her observations of humanity, about the paradox of a species capable of both tremendous kindness and horrific cruelty, about her hope that perhaps, in time, humans might overcome their fear of the different and the unknown. The story of Samuel and Nala serves as a powerful reminder of humanity's dual nature. We are capable of great compassion, of reaching across divides of culture and appearance to form genuine connections. But we are also capable of fear-driven cruelty, of allowing our prejudices and assumptions to override our humanity. Nala's fear of humans was not irrational. It was born from lived experience, from a lifetime of being hunted, feared, and dehumanized simply because she was different. Yet her friendship with Samuel proved that this fate was not inevitable, that individual humans could choose compassion over fear, understanding over prejudice. In the end, Nala's story is not just about a giant Apache woman hidden away from the world. It's about all those who are different, who don't fit neatly into society's expectations, who live in fear because of how others perceive them. It's a reminder that the monsters humans fear are often of their own creation, born from misunderstanding and prejudice rather than any real threat. And it's a testament to the power of simple human kindness, offered consistently over time, to bridge even the widest divides. Samuel Richardson's 20 years of feeding and befriending Nala stand as a quiet act of rebellion against the fear and hatred that defined his era. He chose to see a person where others saw a monster, to offer friendship where others offered violence. And in doing so, he gave Nala something perhaps more valuable than food or shelter. He gave her hope that humanity might one day overcome its greatest weakness and learn to embrace rather than fear those who are different.